Hello everyone, welcome back into another video. So we're going to be talking about some Horus Heresy lore here, and I want to do a spoiler warning. If you haven't read the Praetorian of Dorn, so it's the 39th book in the Horus Heresy series, and you're planning on reading it, don't watch this video. I'm going to be talking a little bit about what happens in that book, so you have been forewarned. But let's get into this. So the Horus Heresy, even the death of a Primarch couldn't stop the traitor assault on Terra. So just as the new edition of Warhammer, the Horus Heresy, advances inexorably toward release, so did the Shadow Forces rebellion loom ever larger over humanity's throne world. After the devastation of the Drop Site Massacre, traitor forces surged out across the stars. It would take almost a decade for the War Master's fleet to arrive above Terra, but the war for the Sol system began much sooner, not with a bang, but with a whisper. So first to strike were the Alpha Legion, charged by Horus to sow discord and confusion throughout the Imperium's nerve center. Sleeper cells planted years before the Horus Heresy awoke and unleashed sabotage attacks, killing millions and drawing Terra's eye away from the Primarch Alpharius' true prize, Pluto. So this is in reference to the book. So essentially what was going on, again, if you didn't read the book, was they were preparing for the assault, and then the Alpha Legion kind of gave the signal and awoke the sleeper cells they had positioned all over the place, and rebellions happened all across the Sol system. It was nuts. Like whole planets, like, or not, I guess some of the outskirt planets and asteroids rebelled against the Emperor, started shooting at one another. It was just insanity across the board. And this happened just before kind of Horus showed up to soften the outer defenses for Horus's arrival. But this was all for a very specific reason, and I'm going to continue through this article and then get into that. But while this is going on, again, on Pluto, Alpharius ends up fighting Dorn. So this is a picture of that fight. So here's one of the quotes. "I did this so that you would understand, so that you would see that you cannot win." A quote from Alpharius. So, home to the Sol system's primary surveillance stations, Pluto and its moons were a vital part of Rogel Dorn's strategy for the upcoming war. Alpharius attacked it in person, leading his headhunters in a spearhead attack to silence the dwarf planet's astropathic choir and plunge Terra's intelligence network into darkness. This crippling gambit would have succeeded, but for a brilliant slingshot maneuver around Sol's gravity wells that catapulted the Phalanx and Dorn himself, accompanied by his Huskarl Terminators, to the edge of the system. There, the brother Primarchs clashed sword to spear, and Rogel Dorn wordlessly struck down Alpharius in a bitter duel. Although the Alpha Legion's attack had been blunted, all this victory bought was time. The Imperial Fist spent years turning the moons of Pluto into mighty battle fortresses, digging in to await the inevitable arrival of the main Traitor Armada. After years of bloody struggle and desperate preparation, the War Master's attack began. Another some cool pictures here. So Sigismund, our oath was to this moment. Fafnir reigned, and our duty is to the war. So two enormous fleets surged through the warp gates around Pluto and Uranus, opposed by Sigismund and his fanatical Templars. At the battle's apex, the Eternal Crusader broadcast the fall of Pluto and began to retreat his ships towards Terra, only to enact an unthinkable plan when the Sons of Horus gave chase. A datagen concocted by the Mechanicum wormed its way through Pluto's moons, detonating apocalyptic caches of fuel and ammunition. One by one, the moons exploded, evaporating hundreds of tightly maneuvering traitor ships in seconds. Right as the Imperial Fist's fleet turned around to charge back into the fray with confusion on their side, the defenders claimed a bloody toll against the War Master's overwhelming numbers, but were eventually forced to withdraw. So fear and despair grow stronger and feed the storm that rides at Horus's back, Malkador. So splinter fleets crashed through the system as an armada of Sons of Horus, Wordbearers, and Thousand Sons soared over the galactic plane to attack Loyalist defenses from above. A fast-moving force of White Scars intercepted them in countless battles among the stars, but even they could do little to prevent a direct attack on Jupiter by Perturabo himself, fresh from his victory at Uranus. On the surface of Venus, Azak Airmen completed a profane ritual to open a tear in the fabric of reality so large it blocked out the sun, through which hordes of vile demons and over 10,000 traitor ships emerged. Angron, Fulgrim, and Horus rode their flagships to the very heart of Terra's orbital defense on Luna, smashing aside the defending fleet and scattering the Loyalists' final line of defense. So liberation requires victory, and that requires a price to be paid by Mars too, just as it was by Pluto and Uranus. Solar General Nibiran So ultimately, the defense of the Sol system was abandoned, with the surviving loyalist vessels retreating to the system's edge to avoid destruction. Dorn's plans to resist until Reboot Gilliman's reinforcements could arrive had failed, and all that remained was the assault on Horus's ultimate prize, the Imperial Palace. Whose side will he be on as the Horus Heresy reaches its climax? Discover your Legion at the Horus Heresy website. Join us on Saturday, the 7th of May. That's next week, for a full day of incredible reveals. So, to go through this, that's kind of, a timeline of what happened after the outskirts of Pluto were taken over, right? And destroyed, basically. So, this entire gambit by Alpharius has always been kind of a funny thing for me because, again, the twin Primarchs, this is the day one of the two of them died. And I know that, kind of later on, and even during this timeline, many of their legionaries will impersonate Alpharius. They all look the same, and people have been like, well, that was probably not Alpharius. That, it was one of the two Primarchs, because when, in the book, the one dies, the twin is very far away on another ship and realizes that his twin has died and knows that he's the only one of the two left. He just senses that through their powerful connection. And even though Alpharius does put up a pretty good fight, again, they're pretty much the two weakest Primarchs due to the fact that they were the smallest. Just because there was two of them. They were meant to kind of work together. If the two of them had fought Dorn, they probably could have won together, but again, it was one of them. So, to kind of get into a little bit of, this is more backstory that I think, because it kind of leads into the Alpha Legion in 40k, where I think that one of the Primarchs was for Horus and the other one was for the Emperor. Which one died at this time? You don't know. It's not clear which one of them died. And I know that, again, in the Scouring, it's not confirmed, but Gilliman said that he killed Alpharius. He did not. Dorn never told anyone about this for God knows why. But this was kind of a hidden thing, that he had killed one of his brothers. But it's important because, again, with the death of a Primarch, it couldn't halt them. The Alpha Legion was one of probably the only legions where a Primarch dying, they're like, oh, we're fine, right? It doesn't affect them at all with their leadership structure and everything else. Majority of them probably didn't even realize it was really Alpharius that was with them. It was just the way the Legion was set up with checks and balances. So it's funny to me when they have this title being the death of a Primarch couldn't stop the traitor assault. The death of any other of the Primarchs probably would have stopped the Legion in its tracks. They would have retreated. Something crazy would have happened to that Legion, and there would have been serious consequences to that. However, the Alpha Legion is the one Legion that doesn't matter, because someone else can lead them easily, and Alpharius probably had it set up that way, that knowing he would die. And the whole reason he was there was to try to tell Rogel Dorn, and this is why, in my opinion, I think it was the one that was loyal to the Emperor that was there and died. But he was basically trying to tell Rogel Dorn that you have to be careful, because Horus is going to attack you with demons and through ways that you don't understand. As they're fighting, he's trying to help Dorn realize these things through this insane Alpharius way of doing things. But Dorn doesn't understand, right? Dorn's just Dorn and just smashing stuff at this point, right? So Dorn is completely blindsided by what the traitors do, because he didn't see it coming, even though he was told about it by Alpharius. So it's this weird sacrifice for me, because if Alpharius did all of these things while still kind of giving the information to Dorn, at least it makes his sacrifice, and I think it was a sacrifice, worthwhile. But it kind of falls to nothing, because it falls on deaf ears here, the warning. Now, Alpharius and the Legion at this point, they do this attack on Pluto, and then they essentially, for the War Master, they don't really appear at the Siege of Terra at all. it's said that they're around, right? There's cells of them all over the place operating, but you don't really see that at all throughout the rest of the Siege of Terra. This was kind of their big moment in terms of attacking the throne world. And it's interesting because, again, with Omegon afterwards, with what happens with the Legion, because a lot of the Alpha Legion, you can even say that, you know, they're the most loyal because they realize that if Chaos wins out, then the human race has to die essentially for Chaos to die. And that's more important than the human race, right? So it's this back and forth. That's why the Alpha Legion's so interesting. But let me know in the comments what you thought of this title. I thought it, again, for me, it was a funny title because it's kind of like this grabbing, like it wants your attention, but at the same time, you know, nothing can stop the Alpha Legion, I think. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Again, please let me know in the comments what you thought of this video. I'm going to start trying to do a little bit more kind of Horus Heresy lore and throw stuff like this at you. I'll see everybody soon.